3 wins in a row for the Sacramento Kings, including 2 here against the Pelicans as they win their second straight against the Pelicans. And after going 0-6 to the Pelicans last season, the Kings are now 3-0 and have a chance to sweep the series tomorrow night in New Orleans. And these wins that the Kings are picking up right now are just so crucial. And I say that because the Kings had a lot of movement at the trade deadline. There was a lot of change. And so, of course, you can use the excuse if you lose games of just trying to get used to each other, trying to figure things out. But I think if you really just started losing a bunch of games here, you might be out of the playoff picture pretty quickly. And I think there are 2 other times that it kind of reminds me of in recent Kings history. One of them being the bubble season, where the Kings got into the bubble because they were close enough record-wise. And they go in and everyone's kind of excited, like, okay, the Kings actually have a shot here. They have a shot to really make something happen and maybe even make the playoffs here. And then they come in and they lose their first game in the bubble and it's like, oh, it's kind of over now. And then another example is when the Kings made the trade for Domantas Sabonis. And you win the first game, but then you go through a bit of a rough patch and everyone's excited about Sabonis and what he brings, but all of a sudden you're too far out of it. And so that's where the Kings really couldn't put themselves. They couldn't take too long to gel, and I still don't think that they're totally gelling. But for them to put together 3 wins in a row here, hopefully they can make it a 4th before the All-Star game, is huge. And this was the Keon Ellis game, at least the first half was. I think he had 22 points in the first half, and I just loved how he was letting the threes fly. And he said after the game that Doug Christie was emphasizing to get 3-point shots up because the Kings have kind of been struggling to do that. They haven't been shooting very many threes since all the trades went down. And that's when you bring in a 3-point shooter like Zach LaVine. And obviously Zach LaVine has not exactly been making his threes, but he's been shooting them. It's just like everyone else hasn't been taking all that many. And so in this game, the Kings get up 45 threes, hit 16 of them. That's a good sign. And I was just super impressed with Keon Ellis and how he just kept shooting every 3 that he got a chance to take. And I feel like that's what we've been seeing from him lately. And so he was bound to have one of these games. But even after he started out, I think he hit his first 3. And then he missed 2 in a row. And I feel like a lot of times you miss that first one. It's like, okay, well, you get a second go at it. You miss the second one. And then the mindset could change to, okay, I need to kind of chill out now. I hit my first 3, but now I've cooled down. I don't want to hurt the team. I don't want to be taking too many shots. But for him, it's like, this guy's like a 45% 3-point shooter. And we need to be able to get up those threes. And so he didn't shy away even after those 2 in a row misses. And he just kept firing away. And Keon Ellis, he's just a starting level player in this league right now. With the way he can shoot the ball, with the way he was able to attack closeouts at times, obviously being an elite defensive player. And I feel like I've talked about it a million times since all the trades happened. The Kings are in a weird spot with their lineup, the starting lineup, still kind of unbalanced. The problem is the guy that makes the most sense going to the bench in DeMar DeRozan is also your number 1 kind of offensive guy. So it's like, how do you bench your number 1 offensive guy? How do you bench your point guard in Monk? How do you bench a guy making $45 million in LaVine? But all 3 are kind of redundant. It's like we've gone through this a lot since the trade. But Keon Ellis, I mean, this guy, he kind of makes it easier to be able to have these guys on the bench because of just how well he's playing. And that doesn't necessarily mean in the starting lineup, because I don't see Doug Christie actually making a change to the starting lineup. Even if I do think that that's what should happen, I don't see that happening. And so Keon lately has been playing about 30 minutes per game, and he's been in the game a lot down the stretch. And I think Doug Christie has done a good job of kind of rotating lineups. Keon Ellis went out of this game around the 3-minute, 30-second mark. That's when we went back with our starting lineup. And the offense kind of closed it from there. But I think recently we've just been seeing Doug Christie just constantly like rotating guys in and out down the stretch of games. And that's something that we didn't see before this season, because before it was like we had 6 guys in our starting lineup plus Keon Ellis. Like those were the 6 guys, and we didn't really have any offense defense subs, because a lot of times at least one of those guys would be out for injury. So we kind of had a set 5-man that would end games. And so we don't have that right now. And I feel like you can view that as kind of a good thing and kind of a bad thing. I think it's a bad thing because you do kind of want to have 5 guys that really mesh together and that you're really comfortable going with, and that in most scenarios you're going to go with these 5 guys. And I don't really feel like the Kings have that, even though they do have this starting lineup. But then also the positive side is you have versatility. And you can make lots of offense, defense subs. You can bring Keon in and LaRavia in for defense. And sometimes we saw Lyles coming in. That was last game against the Mavs when he was kind of coming in for defense. And so last game against the Mavericks, we saw a ton of offense, defense subs. In this game, it was a little different down the stretch where we didn't make a ton of subs, but we were kind of comfortable with our 5-man unit and they were able to close it out. So it's still an evolving process here, and we'll see where it takes us. Some other Kings news here before we jump into this game. The Kings have signed Markelle Fultz, a former number 1 overall pick. He is going to come in and fill that point guard depth, and that was just something the Kings needed. We knew that some veteran point guard was probably going to be signed, and I like Markelle Fultz more than a lot of the other guys that the Kings could have gotten, and a lot of the guys that I expected the Kings to be able to get. I honestly kind of forgot about Fultz a little bit. Like I remember at the start of the season, everyone was like, wow, how's he not on a roster? And then I kind of forgot about him. But he's not on a roster because he can't shoot the ball. He has some nice attributes to be able to defend with. Like he's a long, tall point guard. And so that's nice. He can handle the ball. He can definitely score and play make. But there's definitely a reason he's been out of the league. I mean, I think he was solid with Orlando, but it's just he's not a great off-ball player, and so we'll see what we can really get for him. But I think this is one of the better moves that the Kings could have made. And what if Markelle Fultz just blossoms into the superstar that he was supposed to be randomly on the Kings? That would be amazing. But hopefully he can come in and play some minutes because this team does lack point guard play, has some trouble with turnovers, and we had turnover issues in the first quarter again. And it looked like we were kind of going down the same path that we had in all the games, really, since all the trades went down. They started the game off with a Zach LaVine turnover. And within the first 5.5 minutes of this game, we had 5 turnovers. I think the Zach LaVine turnovers were the most kind of worrying for me. He had 2. And I think since he's gotten here, his vision just hasn't looked great. He's definitely made some pretty poor passes. And so I was like, here we go again, some more turnovers. But he definitely got it together after those first 2. And those were his only 2 of the game. And the team, I think, had 8 turnovers in the first quarter, ended with 11. And so it was sloppy to begin with. And it was kind of the similar offense that we've been seeing, where the Kings are efficient offensively when they actually get their shots up. But a lot of times they're throwing the ball away. And some of these turnovers are just so baffling, where they're literally just throwing it to no one. And those are the types of turnovers that you feel, as the team kind of starts to get more comfortable with each other offensively, will probably go away. And throughout this game itself, they went away. Both teams were attacking the rim early on. You had Malik Monk attacking the rim for the Kings, Sabonis kind of cleaning up down there as well. Also, the Kings did a much better job in this game of finding Sabonis down low when he had good post position and throwing good passes into him. That was a pretty big issue against the Mavericks. They could not throw a post entry pass. So in the first quarter especially, the Kings did a better job of that. But then on the other side, you had Zion attacking, Trey Murphy attacking the rim. And there wasn't too much resistance on either side. Sabonis was dominating the offensive glass. Malik Monk was just doing a good job of taking his screens, getting shots up, either hitting a floater or trying to get a layup to go. And if it wouldn't go, Sabonis was there and he was dominating the offensive glass. He had 8 early points. The one worry I had offensively, well, other than the turnovers, but maybe it kind of relates to the turnovers, is how passive Zach LaVine was. It really felt like LaVine just kept passing up shot after shot, pump faking, and then kind of dribbling into some trouble maybe. And so at some point I expect Zach LaVine to actually be able to hit a shot, and hopefully then he gains some confidence and he just starts letting him fly and he gets more into a flow offensively. But defensively, that starting group still, it continues to look pretty poor. Like DeMar guarding Jose Alvarado. At least it's Jose Alvarado, but he was kind of killing us early on, and DeMar was offering just no resistance. We were trying to hide DeMar on Alvarado, but Alvarado didn't let us off the hook this time, at least not early. But then once Keon Ellis came into the game, things really turned around defensively, unsurprisingly. And he came in for Malik Monk, and he already created like 2 steals and 2 transition opportunities within a couple of minutes of being in the game. So I think when he came in, the defense picked up. We were rebounding really well. Also, we were shooting well, both with him hitting shots. DeMar was hitting his outside shots / shots with his foot on the line, of course, because it wouldn't be a DeMar DeRozan game without him hitting a long 2. And the Kings went up 25-13 early on. The one worry was the Sabonis foul trouble. He picked up his second foul pretty early on, but it didn't really matter because Keon Ellis was just on fire. New Orleans tried to go zone to stop the Kings' attack, and Keon Ellis just immediately hits a 3. And DeMar was doing some really nice playmaking. He got to the elbow against the zone. That's how he found Keon Ellis for 3. Then he got to the mid post, drawing attention, hits Keon Ellis for 3. So DeMar's playmaking from the post was really good. And then we had the bench lineup come in. Malik Monk, Keon Ellis, Jake LaRavia, Trey Lyles, and Jonas Valanciunas. And that's a very intriguing lineup. It wasn't exactly the most polished lineup, especially offensively, but it was just the effort lineup. Jake LaRavia and Jonas Valanciunas were getting after it on the offensive glass. Jake LaRavia had 4 offensive rebounds. Jonas Valanciunas had 2. They were just in there battling for every single rebound. Pair that with Trey Lyles getting in there, getting a verticality early on. Later in the game, he takes a charge on Zion, then tries to take another. The threesome of LaRavia, Lyles, and Valanciunas, that's just effort. And then pair that with Keon Ellis and the excitement of Malik Monk. And it's a fun lineup. They needed to make some free throws because that effort was getting them to the free throw line, but LaRavia missed a couple early. Valanciunas went 1 for 2. I also think LaRavia, he's a little chaotic on his drives. I'm not totally confident in his handle going into these drives or the decisions that he makes, but he's going to put his head down. He's going to try to draw a foul, and he did a couple times. And so a lot of times he makes good things happen. It's just a little scary sometimes. The Kings were mixing up some of the coverages against Zion this time instead of just going with Sabonis straight up on Zion and Valanciunas straight up on Zion. They did try to mix in a little bit of Lyles and a little bit of Keegan later on, but Zion just went straight at Lyles, and Valanciunas was there for the help, and that was the idea. But then Zion just kind of spins away from the help and puts in an easy hook. But the thing about the Pelicans is it's Zion, it's Trey Murphy, and in this game, it was Jose Alvarado, and those were the really only 3 guys that were scoring. CJ got some buckets later on, but they just didn't really have that scoring depth. So Zion got his, but as long as no one else really got it going, it was fine. And that's kind of how the bench survived without shooting very well outside of Keon. Lyles went 0 for 5, 0 for 4 from 3. LaRavia 0 for 2 from 3, 0 for 4 from the line. Valanciunas had 5 points, but they were just staying in it through their effort. The Pels did start knocking down a couple of threes and got inside and started to finish a little bit to start the second quarter. That's kind of when Jose Alvarado started to really cook. Then Sabonis picked up his 3rd foul when he came back in. Zion just barreled into him. That one, a little questionable to me. It looked like he went straight up there, but he stayed in the game, which was interesting because there was like 9.5 minutes to go in the second quarter, so I guess you're not going to sit him down the entire quarter. But 3 fouls, that was pretty scary. But the offense was just cold. The Kings couldn't really hit a shot. The Pelicans started hitting some shots, and they also were dominating the interior because Sabonis, like, what was he supposed to do? He can't pick up another foul. And like right away after he picked up his 3rd foul, Zion and Misi just got inside and played a little 2-man game, and nobody else was there. You know, Sabonis was left inside all alone, and that's when the Kings immediately put Keegan back in the game because they're like, what are we doing? We can't leave Sabonis in there alone. But Zion was playing some bully ball. He got an and one against DeRozan, where DeRozan just did the thing that I've been complaining about with the Kings, where it's like the little, oh yeah, I'm going to take a charge. No, I'm going to bail out of it and just give you a soft and one. The Kings do that way too much recently. The Pelicans went up 5. And when they went up 5, guess who was right there to counteract that run? It was Keon Ellis. Keon hit a 3, then blocked Alvarado that led to a LaVine and one. And LaVine just started attacking really well. He was attacking closeouts. He was the one to drive to kick out to Keon for 3. And the playmaking looked a lot better from LaVine from quarters 2 to 4 after a not so great first quarter. And it was a lineup without Malik Monk. Keon in there with the starters without Malik Monk. And so that's when the questions about ball handling become a little worrying. But LaVine did a good job of handling the ball. Also, Sabonis was handling up top. And DeMar was hitting threes. DeMar hitting threes, Keon hitting threes. That helps a lot. Those guys playing with a lot of confidence helps kind of counteract not having a ball handler really. And DeRozan was picking up some of that playmaking responsibility from the mid-post area. But the Pelicans did hit back with their own run, and that was after Keon went out of the game. Kings went back to their starting lineup. And that's where it just felt like the defense wasn't there. Like the activity just takes such a hit with this starting lineup. I feel like there are too many moments I see where it's like LaVine and DeRozan both kind of standing there, both not helping into the paint. There was one play where they were both back on defense, especially DeMar, and Trey Murphy just runs past both of them for an easy dunk. So still a lot of questions defensively about this starting lineup, and they allowed 63 points in the first half, but the offense was good. Malik Monk had some really nice moments to close out the half. He had one pretty bad turnover trying to feed Sabonis, but other than that, had some really tough finishes, and DeMar DeRozan closed the half, drawing a foul to give the Kings a 2-point lead. To start the third quarter, the Kings went to Keegan to try to guard Zion, to try to protect Sabonis from the foul trouble. And I thought Keegan was playing well, and I thought he was really good rebounding the ball, but, you know, it's Zion. He was still getting his. But Keegan did hit his first and only 3 of the game. He was getting up the right shots, but went 1 for 5 on the game. I also feel like teams are starting to close out more on Sabonis because Sabonis chucked up a 3 that missed badly, and it feels like they're starting to get more pressure out on him on the perimeter, and that's been making him miss a few more shots. Also, he's just not been in the greatest shooting rhythm as of late. But I did like how LaVine came out aggressive shooting the ball because he went far too long in this game without even attempting a shot. So he came out, attempted 3 early shots. He only made 1 of them, but he's got to get shots up. Like, you're making $45 million to score the ball. So shoot the ball. But the Kings were making some really nice defensive plays that was leading to offense. Sabonis broke up a pass inside and then ran the floor the other way, got inside, which drew the defense in. That allowed DeMar to get open for 3. Then on another play, DeMar blocked a Pelican inside, and Sabonis picked up the ball, threw another massive outlet pass, like we saw, I think that was last game, where he threw one to LaVine. And that led to a Malik Monk to Zach LaVine alley-oop layup. Little disappointing on the finish there, was hoping for some fireworks, but, it's all good. Get the 2 points. That's okay. And I think the way the Kings were really getting their offense was Sabonis getting those rebounds or the Kings getting those defensive plays and pushing. Sabonis was pushing really well in transition, and he found Monk twice for 3 just off getting the rebound, pushing it up, and then hitting Monk with a little drop-off pass. On the other end, CJ kind of started to get it going. I think he was just getting inside too easily, just taking one screen and being able to walk straight into the paint. And so the Pelicans were just getting some easy looks inside. And then Malik Monk got blocked trying to force a layup through 2 guys. Pelicans go the other way, get an open 3, hit that to go up 1. And that's when the Kings made the substitution. And this substitution was different from the first half. Instead of Keon coming in for Monk, Keon came in for Zach LaVine. So just switching things up a bit, I didn't see a problem with the substitution pattern that they had in the first half. I thought it was fine, but just switching it up here. And they've gone back and forth on this a few times. So just still trying things out. But Keon immediately comes in, chasing around screens, strips the ball, forces a shot clock violation. And the whole bench just came in. Valanciunas comes in, immediately draws a loose ball foul going for an offensive rebound. And that led to a Zach LaVine deep three. Thank you, Zach, for finally hitting a three. Jake LaRavia still getting after it. If he could just hit a free throw, he missed 2 more free throws, but he's getting after it. Valanciunas hit I believe it was Matkovic with a nice pump fake, drive, reverse dunk. Keon's reaction in the corner was so funny. He was just like spinning around as Valanciunas went for that reverse dunk. And so this time it was LaVine in with that bench group, but it was also Malik Monk. So Malik Monk was still in there, but Zach LaVine came in instead of Trey Lyles coming in. But, no matter who it really is, I just loved how they were working out there. Malik Monk blocked a corner three. Like, everyone was just working so hard. And it's so nice to have a bench that just comes in and provides so much positive energy, so much hustle, but you do need more than just hustle. Like, you need some skill, and these guys have the skill as well. And so then to start the fourth, we went with a lineup of Zach LaVine, Keon Ellis, DeMar DeRozan, Trey Lyles, and Jonas Valanciunas. So lots of different lineups throughout the game. And the start of the fourth was when Lyles took a charge against Zion. Then he almost did it again, but it got overturned because his foot was on the line. But that is brave. That is extremely brave. 2 times getting in front of Zion. The Kings were just trying to build a wall. Lyles and Valanciunas were both there, just trying to build a wall against Zion. And so for Lyles to step in and take those charges, I mean, Zion's just going to be barreling his way to the rim. So if you stand in there, you can definitely draw a charge against him. And yeah, that's very brave against Zion. DeMar was kind of trying to search out Jose Alvarado just to shoot over him. And throughout the game, he was really trying to do that, but in the fourth quarter especially, and he wasn't necessarily hitting all of his shots, but you could see he was trying to make a concerted effort to go and just shoot right over the smaller Alvarado. And then it just started to be a free throw competition. Zach LaVine was attacking, getting to the line. He had a couple of attacks. He fouled out Matkovic, 6 fouls in 14 minutes, doing a Jonas Valanciunas there. So LaVine was getting to the line, and he was 11 for 11. From the free throw line. Saved our free throw percentage because overall we went 21 for 29. But then on the other side, Zion was bullying his way to the rim and getting foul calls, and he had a few and ones. But Valanciunas did get him one time with a really nice block. And on the time where Zion got to the line on the overturned charge call, he missed both free throws. So I feel like Lyles still got rewarded for standing in there and taking that charge. The Kings had like a nice little lead, but by no means was it even close to over. And the Pelicans went on a nice, a little run because the Kings kind of forced up some shots. Pelicans ran the other way. Zion caught an alley-oop that cut it to 4. And when the Pelicans cut it to 4, you know who came in and responded? Yeah, of course it was Keon Ellis, who comes in, hits a corner 3. And the Kings just kept going to the same thing. They were having Malik Monk handle around a Sabonis screen. Then Monk kicked to Keegan. Keegan kicked to Keon in the corner. Knocked down that 3. They went to it again. This time Monk skips the pass from across the court all the way to Keon. An insane pass, but Keon missed it. Then they did it again. Keon gets the ball. This time he's run off the line. And he gets inside, feeds Sabonis for a layup. Then they do it again. Keon again, run off the line. Gets inside. That time he turned it over. He turned it over and the Pelicans went the other way. Got a clean look at the 3, hit it, and they were within 2 with 5.5 minutes to go. But I liked that play. They were getting good looks, and I liked how Keon was either confidently stepping into the 3 or trying to make something good happen, attacking the closeout. He had that bad turnover. It was a bad one, but I like the idea from him. But down the stretch, Keegan Murray has got to get a lot of praise because he was playing some great defense on Trey Murphy, not giving Trey anything. And then Zach LaVine came back in. He came in for DeMar DeRozan and hit a crazy step back 3. And I feel like that's the 3 that we've all been waiting for. That off the dribble, step back, deep three that puts the team up 5. We needed that. The game was in the balance, and he just steps back, hits a huge three. And against Dallas, he barely touched the ball in the clutch. He had like one nice play in overtime. Other than that, he was just not touching the ball at all. And so this time, it was kind of his turn to have the ball more in the clutch. And DeRozan had it quite a lot still, but LaVine hit that three. He operated the two-man game with Sabonis. It looked a little awkward, but LaVine got it to Sabonis going downhill, and Sabonis scored. So it's a work in progress, but it worked out on that play. He also was just doing a good job of driving inside, getting to the free throw line. And then you have Malik Monk battling on the offensive glass, getting the ball to Sabonis, and Sabonis getting the putback. That was huge from Monk. And so that's kind of 2 straight games where Monk has made big plays down the stretch of games on the offensive glass. Because that was to go up 9 with around 3 minutes, a little less than 3 minutes to go, I think. And I thought down the stretch, the Kings played some really solid defense. Zion got his a couple of times, but Sabonis had a really nice verticality against Zion. He also had a really nice verticality against Trey Murphy, and just the Kings couldn't come up with the ball. Zion came up with the ball and got the end one, but Sabonis was doing a really nice job protecting the rim. And DeMar kind of put it away when he lost the ball, got it back, was in such a tough spot, looking for someone to pass to, and just chucks it up at the end of the clock. Hits it to go up 11 with 1:45 left. And that was pretty much it. It exchanged some stops, exchanged some free throws at the end, and close it out. And so the third win in a row here. And I think this was actually the most impressive win. I think it was the least ugly. Like, I felt like we were running some nice offense, especially down the stretch of the game. It was a nice mix between Malik Monk and Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan in the fourth quarter, with Sabonis getting his inside as well. The bench coming in and making an impact, even if outside of Keon, they didn't score that much, but Keon scoring 27 kind of makes up for all of that. It was a good amount of attempts from 3. It was, not too many turnovers at 11. Good job rebounding. I feel like it's starting to come together here. Zach LaVine looked more comfortable. We're still waiting for that kind of explosive game, but I think it was his best game because I think he was really solid playmaking, getting to the free throw line. And, the Kings have yet to be really tested here, but these are such important wins to get before you really start facing some tough opposition a little after the All-Star break. I said I would be happy if they just split these games with New Orleans. Well, they already got this one, so might as well just sweep them on the season and get the next one tomorrow. But going through some individual performances, we got Sabonis, 16 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, only 1 turnover. Nice efficient 8 for 13 from the field. His numbers, for the most part, have just been a little bit down, his scoring numbers, and that's not necessarily unusual for him. And I think some of it is his jumper hasn't been going down, so that's quite a few points taken off the board. But I also think, he gets so much of his offense within the flow of the offense, and that flow hasn't quite been there. But he was getting his early, then had a quiet spell in the middle, but then got some important ones late. I thought his playmaking was really good, advancing the ball, getting rebounds, trying to go coast to coast. And, obviously he was in foul trouble and only played 33 minutes, which is, 33 minutes, that's nothing for him. But he did a good job down the stretch of getting some really nice verticalities despite the foul trouble. Then you have DeRozan, 24 points, 9 for 17 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3. He's been dominant from 3, 6 assists, 2 turnovers. He did a great job of finding his place within the offense and had a nice mix of scoring for himself and also playmaking, because he's now the go-to guy on this team. He is, and that's why this lineup is so weird, because it still kind of makes the most sense to bench him, even though he's the go-to guy, especially down the stretch. It's kind of like you're not benching Sabonis or Keegan, so you're benching one of the other 3. You're not going to bench Monk because he's your point guard, and you're not going to bench LaVine because it's the NBA and you don't want to have a guy making like $45 million coming off the bench. And so that's why nobody's getting benched, because then the other option is DeRozan, and he's your number 1 scoring option. But that's why it actually is so important for LaVine to be playing well so that we have more options about who can kind of come in and out in different lineups, who can run the offense in different lineups. Because moving on to Zach LaVine, I think he did a really nice job of running the offense when Malik Monk was out of the game. 7 assists, only those 2 turnovers early on to go along with the 23 points. 11 for 11 from the free throw line is great. Still, 5 for 14 from the field, 2 for 8 from 3. But his 3-point shooting will come around. I mean, it will. I'm not actually nervous about that, even though it's kind of, a funny meme. Like, he can't shoot a 3 now that he's a king, but it'll come. Then you have Monk, 17 points, 4 assists, had 2 blocks, both on jump shooters. 6 for 14 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3. Even though the numbers don't look crazy, I think he had a really nice game because he was making plays defensively and he also was just making the right plays offensively. And that's really what we need from him. Like, his assist numbers don't look crazy, but I think he was just making the right passes and he was trying to attack the rim and the Kings were getting opportunities out of that. So despite it not being anything crazy, I think he had a really solid game. Then you had Keegan, 1 for 5 from the field and from 3. 3 for 4 from the line. But he had 6 points, 5 assists. That's not something you normally see from Keegan. 7 rebounds. But he was the guy kind of making the extra pass a lot of times because 4 of those assists went to Keon. So a lot of times just make the extra pass and Keon was knocking it down. But he came up with some big defensive plays down the stretch. And I think when you hold Trey Murphy to 19 points, like if you can hold Trey Murphy to 19, McCollum to 14, you're probably going to win the game against this current Pelicans team, no matter what Zion does. And of course, it was still close down the stretch, but the reason that they came out and won this game was because they forced misses from Trey Murphy. They forced some misses from CJ McCollum. And it really was on mostly Zion by himself to do it. I think Keegan was a big part of that down the stretch. Then off the bench, obviously we start with Keon Ellis. 10 for 14 from the field to get 27 points. 7 for 11 from 3. This was very similar to that game against Atlanta. Most of his points came in the first half. But I just, like, at some point, he's not going to keep shooting like this, right? Like 45% from 3. I want him to continue to increase his volume and really test it. Like, how far can he push this? How good of a shooter is this guy really? Because, obviously coming up in the G League, he was shooting really well from 3. In his first kind of full season with the Kings, shot really well from 3. But coming into this season, I was just like, it's got to drop off a little bit. Like, at some point, it's got to drop off, right? But he just keeps knocking them down. Pair that with, of course, getting 2 blocks, an assist, a steal, 5 rebounds. He was just making all of the plays out there, responding to every run that the Pelicans made. And then the rest of the bench, not too many crazy numbers. Valanciunas, 5 points, 4 rebounds, 2 blocks, and a steal. LaRavia, 4 offensive rebounds. Lyles had a couple rebounds. Not a ton of scoring from those guys. But it was all about the hustle. Trey Lyles taking a couple of charges. I'm giving him that second one, even though it wasn't actually a charge. All the offensive boards, all of the just scrapping for loose balls. And that's exactly what we signed up for when we traded for Jake LaRavia. Like, that's as advertised. He is going after every loose ball. So just really nice to have those guys come in, give you a nice 35 minutes combined of just effort. And now the Kings stay in New Orleans, play the Pelicans again for the 3rd time in 4 games. NBA schedules don't make any sense, but this is the last game before the All-Star break. So it would be great to go in on a high note. It would also be nice if the Kings could force Zion into one off game, but that's just probably not going to happen. I mean, it's a bad matchup for us. It is. And so you got to try to do what you did in this game, which is take away Trey Murphy, take away CJ McCollum. If Jose Alvarado gets it going for a half, okay, of course you don't want that to happen, but it's okay as long as it's not Trey Murphy or CJ McCollum. You're feeling pretty solid about things. And I want a Zach LaVine 3-point barrage game. Like, at some point we're going to get one, and it would be nice for it to happen before the All-Star break. But anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back tomorrow night to recap the next game against the Pelicans. So I will see you guys then. Peace.